Welcome back. You so the theme today for this episode is how many hats are you wearing? And I was thinking, do I have a hat? I should have a hat. And then I looked, on the screen, and behind me I have these fascinators, and normally I have this little crazy thing sitting on that black shoe. And I said, "Oh, look, and it matches my feather boa too." You'll think I've lost my mind. So, you know what I really like about it? Everything, actually. I like everything. It has a whole thing of its own going on. Fascinating. Cheers. Happy New Year. So, if you've been keeping count, oh, I guess you know what? I'm jumping ahead here, and I'm sorry. For those of you who are just deciding to join me to check out what these episodes are about, my name is Abby Hagyard, and I have spent a lot of time over a long stretch of years creating solutions that make people shift out of one kind of point of view, give them an element of surprise. Good morning, Charles. Um, it, it, I like to give people an element of surprise that triggers curiosity, excites them about possibility, and gives them reasons to smile. Now, I do that because I I think that is the strongest, best, most productive way to lean into anything, is to go in with full on commitment to the moment. I don't mean that we all have to be barnstormers. I don't mean that we all have to be berserkers at the front of the boat. I don't mean that at all. And if that is the takeaway anyone has ever had, my bad. What I mean is, by these things that I do, is that each of us brings our own unique thing to the table, and I feel that we get the most out of that decision and that action if we do it all in 100%. If we are hedging our bets, if we're ho humming, if we can't decide truly whether we would prefer to remain face down on the kitchen floor where the tiles are cool, or get up and do, um, we're not going to achieve the things that we had hoped for. So, by my galvanizing people, by my sneaking up on people, by my creating opportunities to uh, rethink the why, and take a fresh look at the how, um, I think everyone is better equipped to get the most out of the effort that they put in. So the thing about the hat, I'm sorry, but I can see it, and it's, don't look at the screen, Abby. Look at the camera. Okay, but so the reason for the question today, for some reason over the weekend, I found myself thinking of that toy, Mr. Potato Head. Do you remember him? Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head, and you could rearrange all the parts. It was this basic potato head, but you could have different noses and mouths and attitudes and hats, and all of these interchangeable parts. It suddenly occurred to me that was really the direction I wanted to go today, because here it is, the new year. We've and by the way, I hope your holiday was great, in whatever way you needed it to be. And if if it was a struggle, if it was exhausting, if there were stresses that really overwhelmed, I hope you were able to find some joy in staying on the path and getting through it. And because it's a stressful time. There's a lot of fun. There's also a lot of tension and a lot of expectation and a lot of dread for many people. So I hope that your window of time, you were able to spend it in a way that was great for you. I personally, I was very quiet. I was still recovering from whatever the little cold thing it was that I had. And I took the opportunity to say, I don't need to go anywhere. I don't need to push this. I went to a really sweet event on the 24th, and I had lunch on the 28th, and that was it. That was it. I basically just worked and wrote, came up with a couple of really cool things for the Pivotry project, but quiet. Lots of how are yous and happies and promises and hugs and love, just from my computer, just from my phone, not by getting up and going out and pushing my limits. And it was, I have to tell you, it was amazing. It gave me, for the first time in a year and a half, it gave me that moment to breathe and release and rest. And I hadn't done it. And it was like the third or fourth day when I realized, you know what, I'm onto something. I need to do this. I need to schedule this more often. Anyway, is that about hats? It is. It is about hats. It is about us taking on too much because we think we can, and more insidiously we think we should. So I have this exercise for you. It's fun and simple. We have 10 fingers, 4 fingers, 2 thumbs. Now, the thing about us that is unique among most living creatures is our opposable thumb ability to pick things up. There are other creatures who have this. We, however, have taken it to an extreme level in so many ways, and we do so many things with this ability. I mean, it would take all day and well into next week to list all the things that we're capable of doing because we make good use of this. So this is this exercise I want to share with you that I'm certainly going to include in the whole Pivotry workbook process. I have all kinds of wonderful workbook exercises. Some of them I've talked about here on the videos. This one is very cool, and it is both a protection and a limiting our exposure to too much compulsive gotta do, and it always works. It always works in the acting workshop. So I know it's going to work with us. Okay, so 10 of these things, right? All right. Whether you are left-handed or right-handed, it's my left, so you know what I'm saying. Whether you are left or right-handed, let's take your dominant hand. I'm left-handed. Okay, so and of course everything's reversed. So my dominant hand, my thumb and first finger, accomplish a lot of things. I can write and I can cut things and I can measure things and I can create things. So those 2 fingers, let us say, are the fingers I reserve for taking care of me every day. The other fingers, I can, so I lose those 2. The other fingers, I'm left with 8, 5 on this hand and 3 on the other. The other 8 fingers I can assign if I had access to finger puppets. If I had access to finger puppets, I would be able to wear and activate and communicate and perform 8 different separate roles, right? At the same time, just like wearing 8 different hats. I would be able to take on 8 different personalities and have them have all kinds of conversations if I had silly little finger puppets. So what in the acting exercises, what I used to do is I would bring finger puppets and people would put them on and they'd be immediately very silly. And the purpose in doing this was to say, now I want to explain something to you that we don't even think about. And yet it influences and impacts and shapes every single minute of every day. I'm just going to have a sip of coffee before I start. Oh boy. Okay. So here we go. The primary people we get to be are members of our family, members of our community, friends, teachers or students, colleagues at work, and what's left over are the hidden characters, the hidden personalities that we really seldom think about. One of them is the administrator, manager, maintenance engineer that takes care of all of the admin and repair and upkeep on all the aspects of our lives. So we clean the house, and we mow the lawn, and we go and get the groceries, and we do the laundry, and we buy gifts for people, and just the basic taking care of all the rest. So that's the maintenance administrator. And then the other two that we have are characters, our personalities that show us who we are creatively. We have all the potential and all the opportunities to focus and be fascinated by our creative abilities to pull out of thin air, to manufacture out of whole cloth something that did not exist before we thought of it. There's that. And then the other remaining character is the part of us that has a fascination for different activities. And so we join these groups and we take on these habits and behaviors, and we maybe we like to travel, or we like to take photographs, or we're fascinated by toll painting. And I'm not talking about some of these things as an overlap on creativity. Creativity, in my way of thinking, is not merely relegated to art or dance or design. It is also the development of smarter, better, cooler ways to get from where we are to where we want to be. So if we recognize that we have these 8 possibilities, this is what we can do. This is all the fingers we have left to wear our finger puppets. Family, community, friendship, teach, learn, colleagues. That is how we interact with each other on all the levels in the world. Correct? Correct. And then we have these other things that are extensions of ourselves. The way we maintain and manage and upgrade and oversee, the way we create and originate, and the various interests that we have that we pursue, because in those individual groups, we also then feel similarly that we are part of a family, that we are part of a community, that we create friendships, and so on and so on. So these are the 8. These are the 8. These are all the layers, all the hats we are able to wear, right? Because the other 2 are self-care. The other two are maintaining the inner us, the person who inhabits all these finger puppets, the puppet master who controls the whole show. Now, so you say, okay, so this isn't that difficult. Why do I feel so overwhelmed? And the answer is very simple. The answer is crazy simple. None of these other 8 of our abilities are possible if something goes wrong with these 2. None of these other personalities, none of these other facets of who we are, none of these other abilities we have, how we communicate, how we make our place in the world, how we pay the rent, how we learn and grow and prosper. None of those are possible if something is wrong at the root, at the source, with these 2 opposable fingers who make life possible. When you think about it, if something has gone wrong, and it is our decision, our choice to step in and be part of the solution, part of the way that we rise above, reconfigure, reset, recalibrate, so that we can mend and nurture and cheerlead and move on. If something breaks down there, we don't have the ability to do any of the other things, do we? Charles, for example, got very sick, went to the hospital. They gave him something to take and equipment to use. And he and his wife took advantage of that. Whatever it was that they had picked up in terms of some sort of a bug. So they went, they got help, and they came home and they took care of it. And then the next thing we know, a few days later, Charles had a relapse because he wasn't better when he went back to work. He wasn't ready, but he has responsibilities and he has an interest in doing the job well. He's excited about the job. He's excited about the new chapter in his life. Kat is excited for him as well, because it means a complete overhaul and an upgrade in all the things that they have been doing and are planning to do. All of a sudden, a setback. All of a sudden, back to the hospital. All of a sudden, I hate missing work. All of a sudden, every other thing, all these other facets of their lives came to a screaming halt, right? Why? Because the core person, the central me that calls the shots, needed downtime, needed recovery time, did not have the physical, mental, emotional ability to inhabit all the other personalities, did not have the energy, did not have the focus to do the jobs, did not have the slightest solution to override in order to keep on keeping on. And what that meant was a great disappointment, additional stress, concern, because Charles and Kat have lives they live and people who depend on them. It meant added stress and concern because Charles could not show up. Not for forever, but for a while. Because his first priority, our first priorities always are to make sure we can show up. Our first priorities are these two fingers, which represent all the ways we manage and maintain and upgrade and perform our essential survival tasks. If we can't do that, what is it you've said here? Charles, you had to strain the antibiotics and work on. Oh, good. Oh, good, 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 good. Cat is doing great. Awesome. You see, so Charles went to the hospital. They gave him some sort of medication. And, the thing is that medication is a very subjective thing. Its intention is to do this, but every person is unique. And every strain of whatever we have responds differently to medications. This person could be fine, but the person next to them maybe not. Some people go and get their booster shots for various vaccinations. Some are fine. Others fall down for a day or a week, because each one of us is completely unique. So this thing I want to talk about, that is, aside from the I'm sorry, I know I'm talking about something serious, but this hat, I mean, really, do you not truly think that the world would be a better place if this was all part of the uniform? I think it would be magnificent. Can you imagine people yelling at each other over silly, empty, toxic garbage? You need to listen to me. The person on the other side. Okay. So back to my point. I was doing a book for a couple of people. I was doing 2 books for a book project, we'll say, for a couple of people, quite a few years ago. And I realized something remarkable. It was one of those moments where you think, wait, that can't be right. And then the more I looked into it, the righter it was. And the writer took advantage of it and ran like the wind. I realized that there is something we don't address. And boy, oh boy, is it going to be part of the Pivotry in Motion collection of books and ideas and tools and techniques and life hacks. Boy, is it going to matter in a huge way. And I'm going to tease it right now, because this is part of how many hats are we wearing. Another sip. Okay. If we have 8 aspects of us that are busy and active and productive and creative and engaging and powerful and magical. And by the way, when I say 8, when I say family, you realize that we don't just play one role in family, because we are parent, we are sibling, we are child, we are extended relations on many layers. And when we take on a life partner and they bring their family and their extended layers of relations, when we climb into that relationship, we suddenly have a much more layered, more interesting and complex series of roles to play in that family. The same thing is true for community. Whether we live in the country and our community is scattered, whether we live in the suburbs or the urban areas, or whether we live by the water or in the mountains, and everything about those communities is impacted by so many layers of influences. We play many, many different roles in that community, in those communities. We are not simply standing there saying, hi, I'm an end table. We represent many things to all the people that we intersect with. And so in this one kind of bubble group called community, we could be sifting and sorting and bringing forward and sending back 50 different facets of our personalities at any given moment in time. So this is complex. This is not just, I am son, I am daughter, I am mother, I am father, I am Aunt Edna with an annoying dog. We are all of that and then some, right? So family, community, friendship, how many friends, how many layers, how close, how distant, how lasting, how meaningful, and how frivolous, and how joyous and superficial. We play many roles and wear many hats under that umbrella, under that puppet category, a puppet finger category of friend and friendship, and so on down the line. When you're in a public scenario with all these faces that we prepare to meet, the faces we meet, we we have a lot of juggling going on. We have a lot of decision making going on, how to represent in each of those categories. When something happens here, do you know what doesn't exist? There isn't an official, scientific, proven set of tools or techniques to manage the fact that we are living on many levels. When something goes wrong, we either find a way or shut it down. And I can give you an absolute perfect example, two of them. One of them is one of those two clients I had several years ago, who lost his spouse to cancer, and the struggle and the journey through, and the months and days and weeks and hours of that journey were um, a living hell for both of them. And when it ended for his spouse, my client had used up every ounce of everything he had. And when we were talking about the book and the process and the story he wanted to tell, he said, my biggest struggle was finding a reason to put socks on in the morning. And he was the CEO of a very influential consulting business. It's Ottawa, federal government, serious decision makers here. And not only could he not show up and do what he does, at a very basic level, he couldn't even care for himself. Not because he had no will to live. That wasn't it. He's a very strong person. He had just used up all of his resources. When his wind stopped, he fell down with a mighty crash. And there was no part of him that could figure out how to get up, or whether he even cared. And when somebody realized that he'd been missing in action for too many days, and they contacted him and they reached out and they got to him, and they realized that he needed help, they got him to the help. He got the help he needed. He recovered. He found his way back to a place of productivity and balance, and a reawakening of self and purpose. And it was hard. It was a hard road that man walked. And so when he wanted to write the book, he wanted to write it to honor his spouse and her bravery and her brilliance and her journey and their journey together. And we talked about his realization that there was absolutely nothing left to take care of himself. And it never dawned on him that he had basically hung out his consulting business and his clients and their clients. He'd hung them out to dry. It wasn't that he walked away. It was that he didn't show up. He couldn't show up. He had nothing to show up with. And there was a lot of repair work that had to be done, a lot of bridges to be mended, and apologies and recoveries and resets. And he lost some clients, and some of the clients who gave him another chance, they lost as well. They lost their ability to do their job for their clients. And so it was a very big ripple effect that had never occurred to him in a million years. And he was a reset expert. The irony of ironies is that he was the canary in the coal mine. He was the poster child of all the things he normally knew how to fix. And did that journey, did that chapter, did that moment give him fresh tools and greater insights to move forward and help his clients in the years that followed? Absolutely it did. Absolutely it did. It was one of those amazing leaping curves that we never see coming. And and in my case, in my situation, what happened to me was not the same, except that it achieved a very similar outcome. When it became very clear, very suddenly, very fast, that my lovely friend Dave was dangerously sick, seriously ill, there were not enough hours in the day for me to do anything but very, very basic personal maintenance. Because the rest of those hours, all the other hats that I am able to wear, all of them but two were set aside. Why? Because there were not enough hours in the day. And the two that I had to perform, I had to be ready for. I had to be able to bring my A game, no questions asked, on demand. And so did I have the time or the energy or the resources to do more than that? Nope. And the two roles that I played, well, one was that I was the chauffeur. I was the fetcher and carrier. I brought I brought us, me, him, to and from hospitals, to and from appointments. I fetched and carried supplies, materials, information on demand, no questions asked. Come home, turn the computer on, do the research, type it out, print it out, bring it with. And the other role I played was keeper of the gate, companion, fierce defender of the boundaries, and communicator. I was the person you had to meet, pass, and collaborate with every minute of every day, 9 hours a day at the hospital. And Charles is agreeing with me. There's never enough to take care. Charles did it for his dad, and then Kat, when they needed him, it almost took Charles away. Yeah, it's kind of like getting caught in a riptide. A riptide, if you're not familiar with it, is a phenomenon in the ocean when there are waves coming in, but there is also a pull because the waves come in, then they have to go. A riptide is when the pull is really severe, and if you get caught in that space in the receding waves, it can pull you out to sea if you're not careful, and if you're not a strong swimmer, it's very dangerous. So what I had to do in order to be able to be the two roles, to take on and embody the two roles that were essential in that journey, was I had to set aside everything else. So the one thing I promised to keep the momentum alive, to make sure that my essential purpose with Pivotry, with connection and communication, and my my feedback, my support network. I managed to find time to do my twice weekly videos. And I know it sounds frivolous, but they re-energized me. Getting on camera and talking to you at the end of it when I sign off, I'm 3 inches taller because I am connecting and communicating, and it's an exciting and essential experience for a person who creates and connects in the ways that I do. I did that for me as part of the very diminished layers of self care that were essential to me. So from September of 2022, September 2022, until June 2023. June 2023 was my first actual meeting with people, a formalized sit down to discuss and manage. August was my first live event. In May, I began to reassemble, pull out of the boxes that I'd had to pack because I had to physically move, pull out of the boxes all of the research material for Pivotry because it's my work, it's my process, it's my progress, and get myself ready for the time, for the days when I could say, okay, now then, where were we? I fortunately did not have any clients. I unfortunately had no clients. I had no work. I had no income. I had no interactions with people who had indicated an interest in working with me. I had regretfully declined and explained why, and everyone was very sympathetic. However, because it took a long time, they went and found other providers. And so that work went away. Will it be back? Will it come back? I hope so. I think so. But there was a significant lag when you think about it. 10 months, 11 months. That's a long time for a freelancer to be off the radar. Now, when when we think about that, when we think about all the other hats that I easily and typically and joyfully wear, and all the facets of my personality that I bring to bear to serve my clients and my creative purposes, and they were all set aside. And I did not know as I went through each day when, if I would be able to reactivate them and get them back. I had no idea what it was going to be like when the clouds parted and the sun shone through. It was a complete mystery. Not only that, it was a mystery I didn't spend 5 seconds considering. I was busy performing my roles and my functions that were essential to Dave and to all the people helping him on his journey. So if that happens to me, I know it happens to you. I know it happens in your jobs. I know that if you have an issue, if there is a problem with one aspect, it has a ripple effect. And part of the conversations that I've been having on these wonderful videos that you have been part of, and your comments and your outreaches to me afterwards have been so important. And I'm so grateful to you for being part of this creative journey, is that I am not alone in what I'm going through. Every single person who has to prepare a face to meet the faces that they meet, every private person who is also a mom or a dad or a first responder or a guide, a teacher, a CEO, with who knows how many people depending on the abilities that we bring. When we are blindsided and sidelined and knocked down, and our ability to get in the zone and focus and deliver and perform is shattered, there's that whole other layer of stress, because we know people are depending on that. We know people, we have promised people, we have said, you can count on me. Oops. And so the big thing I want to talk about today with the finger puppets and the hats is this. We need to honor and hold fast to a decision that we must provide ourselves and the people who count on us windows of time when we need to be able to shift out of that gear, when we need to be able to pivot and turn and focus on something fresh. The time between is time we very seldom think of, is time we very seldom give a place for. I have this really cool life scheduling tool that I'm going to include in the toolbox that I'm creating for our Pivotry members. And it is a very, very interesting exercise to do. And I've used it with all my clients throughout the years, and every single time it blindsides, and I get all kinds of, oh my God, oh, I had no idea, oh my God. And I'll explain it to you when I've got it, organized and printed and focused on this Pivotry process. The point is this: we don't realize the time it takes us to shift. When we're walking down the street, you know what we don't even think about? If I lead with my left foot, okay, and I put my left foot down, I'm just put my left foot in, take it out, dance all about. Okay, if I put my left foot down and my right foot is ready to take the next step, there is an interval of time when I shift my weight. One foot, that foot. When I put that foot down, there is an interval of time in which, hands up here, so like this, right? One foot down, next foot down. The interval of time is the time it takes us for us to shift our body weight from this foot to this foot. It's a split second. It's a split second, unless we're walking slowly. But we do it with every step. And we add up those split seconds, and all of a sudden, that's time. That's lost time that we did not have invested in something tangible, right? When we take a breath, when we shift gears mentally, when we're listening, when somebody talks, blah, 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 and we're listening and we're going to respond, we don't say our first word as we are listening to the last sound of their last word. There's a moment lost there. It's a split second sometimes. Sometimes it's longer. A person says something astonishing and we got nothing. Okay, that's time we don't get back. It's also time we can't invest in something else. And we are not aware of it. We don't consider it. Back in the day, when people drove cars with manual transmission, now very few cars even exist that have manual transmission. It's all automatic. It's synchronmeshed. The machine itself shifts from gear to gear, and there's nothing that we have to do except not drive into the side of something. But back in the day, in order to go from first gear to second and second to third, and to shift from going forward to reverse and park, we had to go through neutral. The time it took, once we knew how to drive, it took longer when we were learning, but the time it took once we knew how to drive was time we didn't get back, was time we couldn't invest because we were busy moving from one to the next. This ability that we have is so fully an autopilot function, we don't even think about it. What is happening, though, is the faster we go, the more hats we take on, the more roles we say, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, count me in. The less time we have to pause and breathe and reset and relax. And this, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, humans of all shapes and sizes, is how we get burnout. It's how we reach overwhelm. It's how we say, I don't know how I'm going to make a living, but I can tell you where I'm not going, and it's back. I'm not going there. I can't do it anymore. I can't bring what I used to bring. I'm done. That didn't happen 40 years ago to the extent that it happens now. There were and are all kinds of stories. People in factories, people on assembly lines, people, mind-numbingly picking up a grain of rice and taking it out of the barn. Most of us, however, did not live those lives. We found ways to invest in leisure. Okay, but it's come full circle. The number of us who can invest in leisure aren't having as good a time because we're exhausted, we're overwhelmed, and we haven't realized that we need self-care time. We need those two opposables: resetting, recharging, reinvigorating, refocusing, in order to look after all the other facets of us, in order to choose which hat. So I wanted to lead off 2024 with that, because this is the time when we're all talking about resolutions. We're all talking about resets. We're all saying, this is the way I want to do more. This is the way I want to be more. And I want all of us to take a moment and listen to ourselves as we say that, as we feel compelled. I want all of us to say, what if the greatest gift I can give everyone is fully focusing on my reset moments, fully focusing on the moments that I take away to recharge and breathe and refocus? What if I elevate their status? What if I say, I'm all in on recalibrating? I'm all in on me fencing. I was thinking this morning, offense, defense. What about me fence? What about my moments to just be? I think we deserve, I think we have earned, I think we have underestimated and undervalued how brilliant that is, how magical it is when we feel better after feeling less. The morning I woke up, 2 mornings ago, I woke up and I said, I'm back. Whatever that was that inhabited me packed its bags. I'm back. And oh my gosh, how good that feels. Because we forget, because it becomes our normal. I'm fine. Oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. When we're not. However, when we do take the time to really rest, to really breathe, to really forgive, and give our chance 100%. How amazing it is when we have our opposables working their magic. That's what I wanted to share today. And oh, by the way, if you've noticed, the last video that I did live was not number 214. Today's number 215. But I posted 3 videos that I pulled from the past over the holiday weekend because they spoke remarkably well on what we face at those times of year. So there were 3 other videos. I didn't want you to think I had really lost my marbles when it comes to math. So I'm going to be back on Thursday. I have a really interesting video to share with you, and a really interesting subject to delve into. And I also, just before I sign off today, I want to say something about the way it felt this year in a totally different way from previous years, when so many of you reached out, laughed with me, commented, shared, wished me well, sent virtual hugs this time of year, because I needed it without knowing it. And the feeling of family and community and connection and safety and sanctuary and balance and excitement, a small glimmer of excitement that my journey had never really drifted that far off the path, and that I could bring everything I have, all my hats, all my facets, back into focus and make things exciting and fun and magical again. You did that. You were the tap on the shoulder. You were the reminder. You were the virtual hug. You were the phone call. You were the let's go and do this. You were all those things that woke me up, reminded me, gave me a good swift kick or a pat on the back. And I am so grateful for that. It certainly wasn't a gift I needed to return and get in a different size or color or shape. It is perfect. Each and every one of you, you're the best. So between now and Thursday, you know the drill. Be good to you. You deserve it. Remember to hug your loved ones. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. And by the way, you know what? Invest in a hat. I mean, really. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Right? There's nothing wrong with that, right? All right. I'll catch you soon. Bye for now.